Good morning, everyone, and welcome to University Unitarian Church in Seattle, Washington. It's Sunday, January 31st, 2021, and we are delighted to welcome you to our live stream service this morning. The only announcement I have for us is a word of thanks for all those who joined in on our annual meeting or somewhat like annual meeting last week, mid-year update. Large number of people, larger even than the annual meeting. Great reports from staff in terms of all the programs that have been happening in the last 6 to 7 months, and of course a financial update as well. We thank you if you joined us, and if you couldn't, you can wait until June and we'll do it again, okay? Let us begin the service this morning by ringing the bell.
That was really cool to watch. Wow. I call us to worship this morning with these words from John Philip Newell. We wake to the forgiveness of a new day. We wake to the freedom to begin again. We wake to the mercy of the sun's redeeming light, always new, always gift, always blessing. We wake to the forgiveness of this new day. Welcome to worship this morning. Welcome to University Unitarian Church. Would you please join me now in singing our doxology, followed by hymn number 27, I Am That Great and Fiery Force.
Good morning. I'm Paula Narias.
And I'm Jerry Gilmore. Paula, what comes to mind when you think of UUC?
I think of it as a very special community. It's become over the years for us and our family a spiritual congregational home.
Yes, me too.
When we first started considering and attending UUC, it was primarily, like for so many of us, about offering our then young daughter a non-doctrinaire religious education and a spiritual perspective from both adults and other youth.
And then along the way, we found an intellectually and spiritually challenging environment for us, and with many, many kind, thoughtful, and astute congregants.
Yeah, we soon became engaged in spirited coffee hour conversations, with the thought-provoking sermons, the uplifting music. The congregation, alongside the staff, have creatively generated over the years such a range of opportunities for engagement and for leadership.
And Paul and I have been honored to serve on many different roles and service to this wonderful community, which have brought us new friends and forged a shared sense of congregational connection.
These are days of remarkable challenge for us all, and questions of resources are more salient than ever.
Now we even more recognize the importance of all of us doing our part in keeping the church healthy and vibrant, as we share ourselves and our monetary resources with glad hearts.
We have something pretty special here with this community and our congregational home. It needs us as much as we need it to help support the ongoing work of social justice, to supporting each other in spiritual covenant, and in supporting our surrounding community. So in closing, Jerry,
our warmest wishes for good health and good cheer.
We so look forward to being in person with you all again. So please join us in saying the words that we say each Sunday together as we make our offering. This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
As we experience the 1-year anniversary of when COVID first started taking lives in Wuhan, China, and the 1-year anniversary of when this pandemic first reached the United States here in Washington State, I am aware of the general levels of depletion, burnout, and exhaustion many are feeling. The last year has been anything but consistent, with moments of immense gratitude and even resilient joy, and with times of despair, anger, and fear, all coming like waves that won't stop in a year unparalleled in modern life. And what has been apparent since the very first lockdown is that this pandemic has touched people's lives very differently, depending on a number of factors. And so while everyone has struggled, there have been people who have borne more of this collective and shared burden. And so for our prayer this morning, I would like to lead you in a loving kindness meditation, and to do this in gratitude for the Buddhist traditions from which it comes. And this is a meditation that grounds us in compassion, first for ourselves, and then with an open and compassionate heart, directing loving kindness toward others in our community and in our world. So would you start by just breathing? Just breathing gently. And let your heart go soft. And starting with yourself, holding yourself with compassion and in the warmth of care. And I will share 4 statements. I invite you to direct those inward at your own well-being. Remember that gentle, open heart. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe from inner and outer dangers. May I be well in body and mind. May I be happy and at ease. And now turning your attention to someone in your life who you love, who is easy to love and hold in the warmth of kindness. This could be a child or even a pet. And directing these words to them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer dangers. May you be well in body and mind. May you be happy and at ease. And now we're going to send some loving kindness to the people considered essential workers. People who work in grocery stores, as janitors or food or farm workers, bus drivers, child care workers, construction workers, people who have worked through this pandemic to keep our society functioning. And holding possibly an individual or several people in mind, or sending this out more broadly. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be well in body and mind. May you be happy and at ease. And expanding that circle of warmth and loving kindness even further, to hold in mind individuals, or as a whole, medical workers, doctors, nurses, chaplains, mental health counselors and therapists, hospital staff, healers of so many kinds who have bravely tended to people's physical and emotional health during a time in which there has been so much suffering. Healers who are experiencing their own exhaustion. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer dangers. May you be well in body and spirit. May you be happy and at ease. Now I invite you to call to mind people in your life who are parents and caregivers, people who have been juggling the demands of working and caring for another human being under the pressure of trying to keep it all together. And holding an individual or individuals or a collective whole in your mind, sending these words. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be well in body and in mind. And may you be happy and at ease. And now turning that inner compassionate gaze towards people that you know, or towards yourself, people who are living more isolated right now. Someone or someone's living alone, someone who longs for when we can come together again, someone who needs a hug. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer danger. May you be well in body and mind. And may you be happy and at ease. And finally, turning your attention even wider still, holding all beings who are affected by COVID. Feeling how your heart can expand. May you be filled, may we be filled with loving kindness. May we be safe from inner and outer harm. May we be well in body and mind. May we be happy and at ease. In the spirit of loving kindness, I close this meditation, but not the compassion that continues to beat in your being and in this community. Amen.
Friends, I'd like to begin this morning by sharing with you one of my favorite poems by Robert Frost. The title is Neither Out Far Nor In Deep. The people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land. They look at the sea all day. As long as it takes to pass, a ship keeps raising its hull. The wetter ground, like grass, reflects a standing gull. The land may vary more, but wherever the truth may be, the water comes ashore, and the people look at the sea. They cannot look out far, they cannot look in deep. But when was that ever a bar to any watch they keep? The people along the sand, on the beach, all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land, and they look at the sea all day, only look at the sea and not at the land. And as long as it takes to pass, a ship keeps raising its hull. The wetter ground, like glass, reflects a standing gull, some of the things that they see by looking at the sea. Now, the land may vary more, but wherever the truth may be, the water comes ashore, and the people look at the sea. They cannot look out far. They cannot look in deep. But when was that ever a hindrance to any watch they keep? I love Robert Frost, not only because I'm a New Englander, but because Robert Frost is really a terrifying poet. That's not an original observation to me. That actually is something that the literary critic Lionel Trilling said many years ago, that of all the things one could say about Robert Frost, perhaps the most accurate was that he was a terrifying poet. Because in his poetry, he points to human fallibilities, fragilities, tragic dimensions that really scare us. And this is an example of that. The people stand on the beach and they look only in one direction. They choose not to see what is behind them. What may be behind them could vary more than what they're looking at, you see. And they really can't see very far out. And they really don't look very deep within. But that's never been anything that stopped people from looking in any one direction. Now, maybe if you're getting the sense of this poem, you're already imagining who this poem is talking about. This poem is talking about people who only see certain things and don't see many other things. But the fact that they can't go far or deep is really part of the human condition. You may be saying, I know people like this. I know groups like this. But the thing about Robert Frost's poetry is, it's not about other people. It's about you. It's about me. I don't look out far. I don't look in deep. But yet, I form my deepest convictions on what limited things I choose to see. All our lives long, we are engaged in a gigantic struggle. It doesn't seem gigantic, but it is, in terms of its relevance and importance to our being. A struggle between fantasy and fact. A struggle between dream and reality. A struggle between the world as it is and the world as we would like it to be. Facts are invariably demanding, awkward, frequently unpleasant, and sometimes of tragic dimension. So it isn't any wonder that we avoid facts and that we exalt our own fantasies, that we prefer fiction so that we can manage life as if it were not something that had to do with us. So it is no wonder at all that most of us live most of the time with the world as we would like it to be rather than with the world as it is. And we develop this art of evasion, I'll call it, to a very high level of refinement. I had a professor tell me once as an undergraduate that actually education was one of the ways in which we refined the art of evasion. We become so expert at it that we are not even aware that we're doing it, that we are living in fantasy rather than facing fact, that we are operating on a romantic level rather than facing reality. And I know of no aspect of human experience in which this struggle is not revealed. I have known very few people who did not include, as a very large part of their agenda, the creation of a world of fiction and fantasy. Many ways we do this, of course, and romance is maybe one of the most obvious ways. Romance is the exaltation of a charming aspect of life as though it were our real life. It's the exaggeration of a delightful aspect of reality as if it were the whole of reality. And this happens most readily with love. Love as charming and sweet and affectionate as devotion, even as self-transcendence. And no one of us does not thrill to the description, for this is what we have associated with love. And this is a very dangerous revelation, I think, for most of us would not like to think of our understanding as romantic. Yet it is the basic destructive factor in marriage, in committed partnership, for we go on expecting that relationship to be something romantic. And yet it is utterly impossible to conduct any kind of serious, complicated human relationship on the basis of our romantic isolation of only the lovely aspects of it. We do this, of course, in love. We do this in marriage, but we do it in the rest of our lives as well. How many of us have romanticized our political convictions and understanding to the point where we no longer question whether our political convictions are accurate, adequate, or relevant? Certainly what has been happening in the United States in the last 4, 5, 6 years is ample illustration of this point, both on the left and on the right. For those of us on the left, we think it's only a problem for the right, but those on the right know it is only on the left. We get lost in what we think are romantic political convictions. And when this happens, to a large degree, many people become disenchanted and they lose interest in politics. It's no longer something capable of sustaining us. And for the same reason, people will turn away from marriage or they'll turn away from love. It's just too difficult. It's too awkward. It's too much work. And the reality of it all, you see, takes over. And this certainly applies, I must say, to religion and especially to the ministry. No profession is more open to the seductions of romance than this one of religion. The drama involved in being a public speaker, the drama involved in dealing with serious matters and touching people on intimate levels. What wonderful romantic notions can be woven around all of this. But, dear friends, the fantasy may be many-sided. I, with others, oversee a large nonprofit business here. We've got to raise $1 million a year to keep this empty building going, you see. We've got to pay off that capital campaign debt. The people are highly demanding, rarely satisfied, and always want more. Is that romance or what? Come on. A second way we live in a world of fiction is through sentiment, the exaltation of one feeling for a complicated relationship. And maybe children provide the most obvious example of this. Let me say immediately, of course, I love children just as much as anyone else. I am the proud father of 2 daughters and a little grandson. I really love children. Yet affection for children is never pure. Children can be difficult, and there is even a complicated aspect in our relationship to them. If we were able to transcend the affectionate feelings, we may see that as a human being, a natural human being, we may have ambivalent feelings about children, even about our own children. They grow up to be persons in their own right who stand in opposition to you with different viewpoints and indeed with a resistance which to them may be based on hatred or dislike. And anyone who has spent any time in therapy knows how denial of this fact can cause you many thousands of dollars and many years of sitting in an office. This is the relationship of any adult to a child, of children to parents. And sentimentality denies the power of truth. We see this especially as well in relationship to nature. And I don't know of any religious group other than Unitarian Universalists who love to be sentimental about nature. Now, I may wax poetic about birds and bees and clouds and fawns and the lake and the frog and all that, but you know, everything there is absolutely indifferent to whether or not I exist or to whether or not I apprehend them, see them. This is true of music too, I think. When we avoid the complexity of the interrelationships and the deep understanding and the personal confrontation with the reality that's there, struggling and fighting through to some kind of expression, however bad or tangled or worried or alarming it may be, it's really risky to sentimentalize ourselves and our relationships, whether they are with children or nature or art. Language, too, is a way in which we fictionalize the world. We call them euphemisms, you see. And self-deception is often the result. And modern media really do not help us here. News could not function without such language. Did you know that an atomic bomb is really a deterrent? And peacekeeping forces are as benign as adult babysitters. And tax breaks are sleight of hand for selfishness. And rooting out terrorism means civil liberties are scrapped and arms manufacturers make fortunes, which are the insurance accounts for hawks. This is our language. We live with it. We live in it. We live through it. We deceive ourselves constantly, and it's dangerous. And we lead each other into death and hurt and pain and misunderstanding, and they're all evasions, you see. My last illustration is madness. People go mad to escape the world as it is. You don't like the way the world is, so you create your own world, a dream world. You form a new language, new realities, new situations, new relationships, new learnings. Certainly what happened in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th is an example of madness, and it's terrifying. The old way must go. You have your own world. You need to manage it. You live in it. To those outside this world, it's pure craziness. But to those inside such a world, it's the only way of salvation, and they will die for it, and they will hurt for it. Fanaticism, a kind of evasion, and we can see how this draws out the fanaticism of other people in response. And when confronted by such an evil, you have no option but to eliminate it, because the world we inhabit cannot be connected to the other world. Finally, I think that the greatest of all evasions is fantasy. And under fantasy, I would include religion as we understand it. Fantasy is part of all the other evasions, but when I speak of religion as fantasy, it's with this difference. Most religions propose an imaginative creation of a world, including all its ways of knowing, all the explanations for what happens, creating a mythological world instead of a real world. We say that there is a God who directs and controls the universe. This is a way to find peace of mind. Otherwise, we would go crazy with all of the brutality and cruelty of life. So don't fret about your destiny or your fate, because there is a God in charge. The poor will be taken care of. The weak will come first, because justice really doesn't have anything to do with the world as it is. This is a committed way of life for many hundreds of millions of people in the world, and it is very dangerous. This is why I think religion can be the greatest evasion. It's the master evasion, because it plays with romance, and it plays with sentiment, and it plays with affection. It has a kind of craziness to it at times, and its language is cunningly deceptive. These things are hurting us, and I don't mean just individually, but I mean on a collective level just as much, in terms of nations and cultures. They are blocking us off from understanding and from an acceptance of the world as it is. And it ought to be clear that they cannot work, no matter how pleasant, how lovely, how seductive, how apparently comforting they are. They cannot stand. No dream, no wish, no fantasy, no belief, no hope is as rich or as good or as creative as the truth. However bitter, however ugly or awkward or difficult or frightening, the truth may be. You see, Frost was talking about the human race, choosing to look only in one direction, not able to look out far enough, and not able to look in deep enough, and to be blind to so much else that might teach us who we really are and what we really need to do. If we are to mature, then, as persons and as a people, we must learn to accept. We have to understand, as part of the complexity that makes evasion so destructive, we must understand the complexity of our own feelings, who we are, where we are, and we must accept the reality of our own weakness and fallibility and limitations. Now, if you want, you can make any of those an evasion too, of course. There's no way to stop anyone who wants to do it. But if you are dealing with those things intelligently and with sensitivity and humility and with your heart, you will understand that they mitigate what you need to do and who you should become and what must be done in the days before us. And so the real challenge then of coming to the art of acceptance is to ask ourselves this question regularly. How do my weaknesses, my fallibilities, my limitations get in the way of my being more forthright, more honest, more open, more aggressive, more confronting and fearless in dealing with the facts, the reality of my life? I'm not perfect, but I'm not only imperfect. I am evolving. You are not perfect, nor only imperfect, but you are evolving too. So you step out of yourself and you ask yourself, how do these challenges that I face help me become more forthright, more mature? And let's be honest, it's a basic fact for every one of us that there are some truths that we cannot promote at this time and place. It is perfectly understandable to declare that there are some situations that I cannot manage well now. There are some relationships I cannot handle with quality now. There are some needs that I cannot acknowledge publicly now. There are some thoughts that I cannot express without great dismay and hurt now. And there are some valid interests that I just don't have the energy to pursue now. Always now. Not forever, but now. So let me close with a personal note. It is very difficult for me to see pictures or images of starving or suffering people. You know, today we are absolutely overwhelmed with social media, with more information, more images than human beings have ever been exposed to in the history of humankind. And we are ill-equipped to respond to the weight and the seriousness of so much that confronts us, that it's overwhelming and we feel terrible. But even when we see just a few images, it's hard to bear because I don't know how to respond to those things. And I realize that most people don't want to respond to those things either in the way in which they should be attended to. There are accidents and injuries that if I do not have to attend to, I'd really rather forget. And there are some serious group discussions I will avoid I haven't always done that, to the disgust of some, but I may need to do it now. And there are some thoughts that I have and some feelings that I have that I would not share with those who are the closest to me in my life, my most intimate of friends. And my failings in each of these areas is something I need to accept about myself, not punish myself for. But my shame and my discomfort should not be my final response. There are some things that must be understood and appreciated, yet we dislike being confronted by them. So the only way then to manage this evasive tendency and the necessity of acceptance is to follow something that T.S. Eliot once said long ago. He said, "Let us not mock ourselves with falsehood." We cannot lie to ourselves. If we understand, if we are sensitive and responsive, if we know, we can manage, not always perfectly, but reasonably. And that should be the foundation of our values. We will not save ourselves from trouble and distress with this kind of complicated understanding and appreciation, but it will help, I think, if we appreciate the importance of being honest with ourselves. Let us not mock ourselves by lying to ourselves. And that will help us preserve our integrity. And I think that means our soul, our substance in these trying times. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning is hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. Friends, I close with the words of Barrows Dunham, as I've done many times in the years past. Professor Dunham taught at Temple University in Philadelphia until he was blacklisted as a communist sympathizer. He proclaimed the world as he understood it to be, which went against the fantasies of others. It took him 15 years to find another teaching position in New York City. But I love these words. They close actually one of his books. Now, therefore, since The struggle deepens since evil abides, remains, and the good does not yet prosper or flourish. Let us gather what strength we have, what confidence and valor, what boldness we have in facing great danger, that our small victories may end in triumph. And they are always small victories that make up a great triumph, you see, so be not discouraged. So that the world we yearn for or await in our imaginations actually becomes a world that we can touch. Have a good week. Amen.
Die Stille und das Blume steigt aus dem blauen See. Die Blätter flimmen und blitzen, der Kelch ist meist wie Schnee.